Mailbox Dance presents.
What have you learned from the pandemic, or what have you learned from this transition to working in the digital space?
Well, I was just gonna say not a lot, but that it's really paid off to make a commitment to a space and a time in my home, like a daily practice. And some days it's empty, and some days it's full, and I guess that's just been kind of the gift. I mean, not a gift I asked for, but it's been a positive thing to have dance be in my home now, even though it's a small space and even though it's contingent a lot on other variables.
I feel like the being inside of the digital realm has completely transformed actually how we're thinking about our work. We're not thinking about our work as much as an experience, an artistic creation experience, but much more of like looking at the root of the values and mission and vision of the work and really tapping into more of that. So actually I've found us being more, I'm feeling more like a community organizer these days than a choreographer. And then, but meaning in many ways that is what a choreographer is.
I think that it caused our community to pause or just frozen, as was mentioned by Jordan, right? Stopped, which provided space for, everybody's always so busy getting up the next show, getting up the next production and next tour, that the excuse around not doing certain vital work has been, we just don't have time. And so when you take all that other stuff away, of course, everybody's trying to save their organizations. What you're left with is that stuff that was left undone and untended. Which brings me to the idea of how this has shown us really what inequity looks like. And in the dance space, it in particular, relative to diversity, which is what I kind of deal with. When we enter people's homes, we get to see the different ways people are living. And oftentimes, especially when organizations are trying to diversify, they're throwing money at it, they're giving scholarships, and they're bringing children into their space where they put on a uniform and everybody looks the same.
Well, we can go to the next question. Those questions are directed to... Sorry, it's 8 a.m. in Korea now, so, and I already drank 2 coffees, so... to Jill, Homan, Randall, and Matthew, Cumbie, and YeaJean. So what are you doing to prepare for reopening? For instance, when schools are suggesting to go back to face-to-face, and theater performance venues are getting ready to reopen with small audience. So yeah, how you're preparing for that?
It's a massive pause and massive logistics. And I applaud people like Jacob who are already getting out there and doing performances, and outdoor site-specific work is a passion area of mine, and I think it will become much more prevalent across the country in the coming months and coming year.
I will face another challenge is, what is the production? There's also no production. So the momentum of building a company, I'm doing that, building a small group together and then plan a production, which basically I will just put money and rent the theater, and that's the schedule. And then based on that production time, the performance, I will trace my rehearsal back to about 2 or 3 months. With the freelancer, have to contract them, get their schedule. Once I get their schedule, I get studio schedule, then I just pay forward all the way to the show. So with this pandemic, in a way, it kind of helped me to save money. So I'm not going broke to pay everybody while they're dancing online. I'm like, yes. But the real question is, what is the next schedule? Like, at what point I will feel comfortable to say, here's another 20K I will put towards the creation of piece.
The other thing that comes to mind too, this has been a really interesting opportunity for me to both expand and explore how I think about my work and what does dance look like, how can it look, and how can I grow in this both as a maker, but also I'm struck by Ana Maria's kind of correlation between a choreographer as a community organizer. I've been, particularly this week, in light of everything happening here in DC, I've returned to rereading a book that I really treasure by Grace Lee Boggs, who is an incredible community organizer and activist that was living in Detroit until she passed a few years ago. And yeah, it's been a great opportunity for me to think about, like, how does dance need to look? How can dance look? And how can I use this as an opportunity to grow and expand what I do and how I do it?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue. So I want to keep that frame as we go into the next question, which is a really huge question. So what does the dance world look like post COVID-19?
If we're going to rent a theater space that normally was a 300-seat theater, but they're only seating 25, so now that theater space is 75 seats, but are they still charging us that rate for the 300-seat theater? We need to really think about that. That's not a 300-seat theater anymore. It's a 50% or 25% theater. And I think also we need to start making demands on theater spaces that say, hey, you need to provide some sort of streaming capabilities. If we're renting your theater space, you need to provide a streaming capability so we can now have an off-site audience, which is pretty exciting because then that enables a global audience that wasn't there before. So there are some exciting things that happen during this time period. You go from being a local company to suddenly a global company.
The problem is everybody just wants to take school and put it online. But it doesn't, that's not just, I mean, it's just like what you were saying, Yen. Like, why are there 5 math teachers teaching one math lesson to a classroom that no longer needs to be limited by the number of people, when you could break those teachers up and somebody could teach like like if you had trouble, go to this person, but nobody wants to. It's so hard to go, this is not going to change. Like, we need to adjust course and stay that way. Like, nothing's going to go back.
How are you negotiating live and digital dance practices? And what digital practices do we keep for re-envisioning the future?
So it'll be interesting going forward. When will we be able to make time to bring that in? Will we be bringing it into the studio and actually bringing an education class to the studio, which I think is super important, to be bringing in things of not just teaching jazz and tap and ballet, but teaching conditioning, how to help yourself and things of that nature. So I think that'll be interesting take to see where this takes us, of how we keep bringing the education and the online classes into the everyday dancer and the professional dancer.
I think one of the useful things about alternative venues and site dance is just really looking at the context and the situation and the environment you are in. And yes, it's limiting, but it's going to force us in new directions. So we're going to have to continue creatively problem solving in these directions and see what's possible. So I'm intrigued. I'm a big contact improviser. That's my fundamental practice. So, I mean, that's why I feel like I'm on ice as in my embodiment. I just feel like all I can do now is prepare myself for when it's possible again.
And the last thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to digital specifically is this idea of like mental health. Because I know oftentimes with Instagram specifically, people follow people that they admire. And so these people that they're following have these like huge responsibilities, because if they have bad habits or they're promoting the wrong things, the people that are following them start to kind of take that on themselves. And I think mental health is like a super big problem as well. So all of us as cultural leaders, whatever we're doing, it's really important that we continue to find ways to inspire people that are feeling isolated or lonely during this time. So I think there's a lot of pros to digital, but it's how it's kind of utilized and how people still feel connected even though they're talking through a screen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.